Hey there, ¿cómo se va and qué pasa? I'm sure y'all like that music y'all just heard. Anyway, I'm your host, Jay Bodwin. Welcome to In the Pocket with Jay Bo. Today, our episode features a recently retired man from Texas via Louisiana, a great gumbo of a fella who truly embraces his Texas and Louisiana roots, Mr. Jack Lippa, a.k.a. Jack the Rattler, or as my band, the Bayou Junction Band, refers to him, the Secret Weapon. Jack has a BA in Business Administration from Sam Houston State in Huntsville, Texas. In addition, he attended Colorado Aerotech for airframe and power plant, which gave him his FAA license to be able to work on commercial aircraft as a technician and his pilot's license. Jack was a charter member of the USHGA. I'll give anybody $100 if they know what that means. The United States Hang Gliding Association in 1976. A certified hang gliding instructor for 8 years, along with teaching motorcycle safety and driver's education. And you're still with us. Jack has worked in the aerospace industry for over 30 years with Aloha Airlines, imagine that, Continental Airlines, and United Airlines. He has been married for over 40 years to his best friend, MariAn, who he met in California when he was teaching hang gliding and got her back to Texas just as fast as he could. He is a son, a husband, a father to 4 daughters, and has 5 wonderful grandchildren. He is a recent retiree, outdoor enthusiast, world traveler, songwriter, adventurous, and more importantly, a dear friend with a giant heart and an amazing harmonica player, and is actually the best harp player I've ever heard before in public. Ladies and gentlemen, what an impressive and awesome resume. I'm so happy he is able to join us today. I have the pleasure of having on my show, Mr. Jack the Rattler Lippa. Jack, you are now in the pocket with Jay Bo.
Yeah, baby.
So how you doing?
Well, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. I am happy to be here, Jay. Happy to be here.
Well, today's episode is going to be sponsored by the Houston Hangout and Astro Joe Garcia production on Substack.
I know him.
That's right.
Astro Joe, yeah.
That's right. The Houston Hangout explores the intersection of creativity and strategy, blending music, business, and community insights to inspire meaningful, lasting impact. Joe writes a daily blog of inspiration, education, and at times entertaining short stories that he ties a song in at each of the end of his writings to enhance the message. These are awesome reads. That's Houston Hangout by Astro Joe Garcia, and you can find it on astrojoegarcia.com. How about that? All right, so Jack, again, thank you and welcome to the show.
You bet.
And one thing we like to do that's become a staple here on the In the Pocket with Jay Bo show is we ask you 5 icebreaker type questions. So I've developed 5 questions for you.
I'm mortified, but let's go. Okay.
I'm petrified. Okay, first one. So how did you get the nickname Rattler? And the thing that's always got me, why is there just one L in Rattler? So now you're going to answer something our whole band has been wondering.
Oh, my goodness. That's a tough one. That came from a guy named Ronnie. He was Ronnie was lead guitar and vocals in a band I was in a decade called Shameless.
Okay.
And he said I rattled on the harmonica. And the one T is to separate it from, rattlesnake. I'm just a rattler. But that came out of the band Shameless, and Ronnie brought it up one night and it stuck. It's been there for a long time. Jack the Rattler.
But how did there's just one T in there?
Well, because I'm not a rattler, I'm just a rattler.
A rattler.
A rattler.
Oh, okay.
I'm rattling on the harmonica.
So we used a slang version there.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
That's where that came
from. We always were wondering that. Now I'm in the know, so I feel better. Okay. Second question, as a new retiree, what is your new favorite thing to do?
Sleep.
Sleep.
Till the crack of noon, baby. Yeah, no, I really enjoyed retirement. I spent a lot of time on boats at the lake. My wife and I travel a lot in the RV. I sleep till noon every chance I get.
And do you take the old man naps occasionally?
I do. I'll sometimes take an old man nap, preferably not when I'm driving the RV. But, yeah, I do like the old man nap, and it's just really nice unplugging. In fact, I got off of Facebook a few months ago.
Sure.
I haven't scrolled on the internet for probably 6 or 8 weeks.
Right.
And I can't tell you how nice it is just to completely unplug. Now, I will plug back in to listen to this podcast.
I hope so.
Because I'm really curious how it's going to come out. But being unplugged is the nicest thing about retirement.
I like it.
Yeah.
I like it. Third question. When you were a kid, what did you want to be and why when you grew up?
Well, it all started when I was 14. No, I got to say that a lot.
Okay.
I like that. Golly, I wanted to, just like most kids in South Texas, I want to be rich and fly jets and have beautiful women and just all the things that typical South Texas boys want.
A rock star. Sound like
I'd be a rock star too.
Okay.
I don't think I had anything in particular. I'm sure I went through the fireman, the veterinarian stage, but just waking up, being me seemed to be
Being a
good
kid.
enough. Yeah, just good enough for the time being.
Right on. Okay, the next one is this or that question. And I think you may have answered it already. So we'll just maybe point this around the majority of your lifetime. You prefer to be an early bird or a night owl? Which one?
Well, the night owl always leaves you asleep until a crack of noon. So I do like the nighttime, especially out on the loads. I love looking at the stars and, staying up way keeps you in bed till, like I say, the crack of noon.
Sure. I love it. Okay. So night owl.
Ooh.
Yeah. All right. Last question. This is usually one of my favorites is if you could go back in time and have a conversation with someone, who would it be? It could be a family member. It could be an athlete, a musician, anybody. If you could go back in time, who would the person be that you'd want to have a conversation and why?
Oh, boy. Well, I've been fascinated by the Old West. So I think if I were to go back in time, I'd want to go back to the Lonesome Dove days or before and sit down and have a conversation with Doc Holliday.
Nice.
And James Gang, someone like that.
Right. Wyatt Earp.
Wyatt Earp. There you go, Wyatt Earp.
Yep.
Wyatt and the Doc. Yeah.
Yep. They were the compadres back in the day.
Yeah.
The OK
I
Corral.
love those times.
Yep. Good stuff. Yeah, I've had people answer that question with a great grandfather, John Lennon, just different people. Interesting stuff.
I'm just fascinated by the Old West. I love the Old
Yes,
West.
good stuff. I do too. My wife doesn't, but I do. I love that type of stuff. All right, so let's get into the meat and potatoes of what we're going to talk about here
Oh,
today.
you're serving dinner?
I wish
Meat
we were.
and potatoes.
I wish we were. Like the old Dean Martin roast, and Rickles would say, man, you people in TV land don't see this. We had crackers and peanuts and water with a guppy in it.
Water with a guppy, that's a new one.
So anyway, getting along to the interview portion of this. So, all right, tell me about, you were born in New Orleans, so you're a NOLA baby, at Baptist Hospital on St. Charles Avenue in the French Quarter.
I was. And not only that, it was in February. So basically, my mom and dad were passing through New Orleans for the Mardi Gras, I figure. And I always thank her for stop dancing long enough to pop me out. The Baptist Hospital in St. Charles. I don't think it's there.
I don't think it is. I don't think it is.
It's been torn down, but my sister was born there too, and an old buddy that's now my sister's sweetheart in Austin. He was born in that hospital.
Okay.
But it was born right at Mardi Gras time, and my dancing mom fortunately stopped just long enough to have me. The rest is history.
So were your parents just passing through town?
Well, actually, they lived there.
Okay.
They moved shortly after I was born. I don't know why. There can be all kinds of horrific reasons, but we came to South Houston after that.
Okay.
But being born in New Orleans in February, that's just...
You're a Mardi Gras baby on top of that.
That's a Mardi Gras baby and a king cake.
Very, very fitting.
Yeah.
Very fitting. So tell me a little bit about your parents, and then what made the move to go to Houston from New Orleans?
Well, Dad was in the service, World War II. He was on a B-29.
Okay.
Shot down twice.
Okay.
Mom talks about, she's from Lake Charles, Louisiana. She was a model in Lake Charles.
Ah.
And they talk about back then, when the war was over, all the girls would go and they were all looking for husbands, so they were all looking for servicemen that had just come out.
Right.
My mom thought the Air Force was the best choice, so she went to a swimming, had a lot of Air Force guys hanging, and that's where she met my dad. They have had just a wonderful life. Mom was born in Trinidad.
Okay.
And my family back in Trinidad makes a really good hot sauce. Nice. It just got FDA approval for it a few years back. It's called Birdie's Hot Sauce.
Birdie's Hot Sauce.
Birdie's Hot Sauce. Right. You can buy it on the net, and I think you can buy it in stores now, the FDA approval. But she was raised on hot sauce. I was raised on hot sauce, and Dad tried to stop all that, but they led beautifully long lives. They had a long retirement, 25 plus years of retirement. They lived on a boat for 10 years. mostly in the Bahamas. And then when they got too old to pull the sails and drop the anchor, they lived in an RV. Once Dad got too old to drive, Mom drove. They went all through the country, South America, Canada, National Geographic tours. But they had a wonderful retirement. They were just really, really good people. We lost Dad about 10 years ago, and we lost Mom a couple years ago at the age of 96.
Impressive.
She used to come to all the shows and dance. She was a dancing. But I was really lucky there, Jay. I had a real good home life, real stable life. I don't take that.
No, absolutely not. Very, very blessed is what I call that. Your father, so was he Air Force guy?
He was. He was radio operator on a B-29.
Okay.
Shot down twice. Survived, obviously, both times.
European theater or?
The Pacific.
Pacific, okay.
Yeah, the Pacific. Real close to the atomic bombing, something he doesn't talk about.
Sure.
Wasn't on that plane, but were involved in it. It was just a terrible time. But they were called the Greatest Generation, if you recall. The Greatest Generation is the one. Well, that's why we're here now in this country, is because of the generation.
Absolutely.
But yeah, he was Air Force.
And your mother, what did your mother do?
She was in real estate. She was an artist, in the flower garden club thing. She loved the beach.
Yes.
They lived in Galveston for a while, and all the grandkids and us, we have hours of memories walking the beach with my
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, it sounds like you're continuing the Lippa lore with the lifestyle that you and MariAn have right now.
Gosh, never a dull moment, Jay. Never a dull moment.
I love it. So talk to me about growing up in Houston. You went to Conroe High School, the home of the Fighting Tigers, right?
Fighting Tigers, yeah.
So, tell me about your high school years.
Well, that was Conroe High School. We moved up to Conroe, I think, in 1971, our house in South Houston, down by Westbury Square.
Okay.
Back when Westbury Square was a really nice place. I was a dishwasher and a pizza boy and an ice cream jerk. I mean, it was like 200 yards from my house. And then we moved, our house burnt down in November of 71, I think. Burnt pretty much to the, and we moved up to Conroe, and I graduated Conroe High in 1974.
Okay.
In fact, we just celebrated our 50th high school reunion.
Nice,
Which
congratulations.
was phenomenal. There's like 110 people there. You get to see all the girls you wish you married and the ones you're glad you didn't. But
right on. Yeah,
we just had that, and just a phenomenally good high school graduate. And that's how we ended up in Conroe, was our house burned. Smart move on my parents' part. I was starting to hang around with the wrong crowd.
Yeah, you got to be careful with that.
Yeah.
And it's a good thing parents pick up on that type of stuff. Good parents. When any extracurricular activities in high school?
Girls.
Absolutely.
And then I moved on to women.
It was the that's the mid 70s, I guess.
Yeah, the mid 70s.
Early
That
mid
was
70s.
when, you may not recall those, but that was when sex was safe and drugs were cheap.
There you go.
You guys screwed that up, Jay. You screwed all that up. Your generation.
Yeah, I'm just turning 60, so I can relate. I have cousins that are around your age, and I used to worship those guys.
There was nothing like the 70s. We had rock and roll. We had Hendrix, Joplin, the Rolling Stones, the Beatles, Led Zeppelin.
Cream.
It was all coming out. Yeah.
Without a doubt.
It was just great. The 70s were phenomenal.
So after you graduated Conroe, you attended University of North Texas State, I believe, which is now University of North Texas.
Right.
Okay.
Back when I was there, it was called North Texas State University. I have no idea why they changed the name. Somebody decided to change the name, and they changed the name, and it's UNT now. Okay. Really good school, business school. I went there for business, and it was a really big music school, too. Oh, okay. But Denton was a great place to live.
Denton, Texas,
north of Dallas. Johnny Carson said on his show in, I think it was about 1976, he said that Denton, Texas was the best place for a young man to go to college. And you ask yourself why, and it was because Texas Women's University was there, and literally the odds were 8-1. In Denton, Texas, there were 8 girls or 1 guy in the city.
Holy moly.
So that was our major.
Pretty nice. Yeah. I can relate to that.
Enough said.
Yeah. So you had to get out of there, and you actually you went over to Sam Houston State.
Yeah, I ended up graduating from Sam Houston State. It took me 14 years to get a 4-year degree. I blame that entirely on the sport of hang gliding, which we'll talk about in a little bit.
Yes, we will.
But it took me a long time to get my degree. And when I came back, I had a couple of kids, and I was broke, and I went to the local school, Sam Houston. All my hours transferred, and I was able to graduate from Sam Houston State. And that's a pretty good university, too.
And you got your degree is in business. So were you still deciding what you wanted to do when you were graduating college and around that time frame? And man, what am I interested in?
Yeah. Well, my second year in college is when I got involved in the sport of hang via a roommate with a fledgling sport. And it was all downhill. In fact, the magazine was called Ground Skimmer Magazine because nobody was flying. You were just skimming along. And I wanted to be an airline pilot. And my dad's older brother, who was also he told me, he said, if you want a really good family life, find something in aerospace to do on the ground. He said pilots have a pretty rough life in terms of marriage. They're gone all the time. They're forever in the company of flight attendants. Right. And that's nothing but trouble in 5-star hotels. And he told me, he said, if you really want to have a good, stable, and you want aerospace, find another place to work besides pilot. And that advice made me move away from being an airline. And I'm glad I didn't because my family ain't stable. To working in aerospace in the business end of it, the technical end of it. Yeah.
Sure. My cousin, Stan Sullivan, he was actually an Air Force officer, Air Force pilot. He just retired from Delta after a few years ago now. I think over 30 years service in Delta as a pilot. And when he retired, they said his parents, who were both still alive, were the first time that somebody had been retired after 30, 35 years. Yeah. But both parents were. First time they could think of that. And also Stan and his wife, and he was a pilot, international pilot for Delta. I think they just celebrated their 40th or just above their 40th wedding. So they're one of the lucky ones. And I remember going to their wedding when I was probably about 19 years old. So anyway, I just thought that was an interesting tidbit when you got the advice of find something on the ground to do. And I knew Stan was, unique with that. So talk to me a little bit about how you ended up, once you made that decision to go into the aerospace industry. What's my path forward here? What's my next step? What do I do? Yeah, so talk to me about that.
There's a big difference between commercial aviation and hang gliding, let me tell you.
Sure.
The fun factor, anything else involved. I chased the sport hang gliding, Jay, for 12 or 15 years. Flew some of the best spots in the United States and Hawaii. It wasn't until I had my first daughter, maybe second daughter, that I realized living in a Volkswagen camper van teaching hang gliding was not going to be a very smart route for me to take.
Sure.
So I went to aviation technical school and got what's called the airframe and power plant license. It's administered by the FAA.
Now, where was that?
That was up in Broomfield, Colorado, right north of Boulder, Colorado. Okay. Good hang gliding. I was up there hang gliding.
Oh, mountainous area. Absolutely.
Yeah, and a buddy of mine told me about this school, and I went and got a loan to start. Anyway, the airframe and power plant license, that's the license to work on commercial aircraft and jet engines.
Sure.
Sign logbooks, that kind of thing. And I combined that with the sport of hang gliding. I worked as a hang gliding instructor for about 8 years. There were not many hang gliding instructors back then. It was still a fledgling sport. So you had to get an instructor to be able to sign off your next license. So we were pretty popular. It also allowed me to fly some of the nicer production gliders and test fly a lot of gliders, which was a lot of fun.
Okay. What a rush that had to be.
Oh, I tell you, I have been almost 12,000 feet. You need oxygen at 14,000. Right. I probably needed 11 due to the 70s. But it's just meant to be 2,000 feet above the tops of the clouds. And you know how when you're skirting through the clouds in an airplane went in for final approach, the pilot's kind of skirting through the little channels. Well, he's doing 160 knots. And imagine that at 12 to 18 knots in a
right.
And if the sun's above you, right, it shines to your sail, and it puts this color of your sail on the top of that you're just talking about. Rush. It's just
sweet.
It is the most phenomenal sport I've ever been. It's as close to it will ever get.
Absolutely.
And it consumed me. Consumed a third of it.
I bet
I still have a glider in my garage. I keep it just to remind myself I used to be cool. But I'm pushing 70 now. And I don't know too many guys that are still flying at age of 7.
So with the hang gliding, that is when you met MariAn, your wife, this wonderful lady.
I did. I was, I met her out in California.
A little over 40 years ago.
Yeah, a little over 40 years ago. I met her out in California. And, it was a hang gliding. There's a lot of stories behind that.
Sure.
I don't have her permission to tell them. So
understood.
It was pretty much centered around a Volkswagen camper van. Yeah, I had a dog named Scooter. Scooter would take care of himself. I could go flying and come back 3 days later. And Scooter knew not to eat all the food in his bowl. He would ration it out day by day. So when I came back, he was sitting under my van just where I left him. A little bit of water and a little bit of food. Best dog I ever had.
What kind of dog was Scooter?
Scooter was a mutt, much like me. He was just a mutt, kind of a scrawny shepherd mix of everything.
So you met MariAn, y'all got together, and you got her back to Texas as quick as you could.
I got her back to Texas as quick as I can. She's got a really great family out in California, but they are surrounded by the fruits and nuts of life. Although it's got good hang gliding, good scuba diving, and everything else, it's just, holy cow, I had to get her back to Texas as quick as we could. And
yes, indeed.
She's definitely a Texas girl. She's my yellow rose.
Yes, indeed. No doubt. She's just a wonderful lady, and my wife Becky and I enjoy being around her. She's just the best. That's all I can say. And you were also a motorcycle instructor and a driver's ed teacher.
I did. I love teaching sports that can kill you.
Okay.
I'm really big on safety. There is no compromise for safety with airplanes, with hang gliders, with motorcycles, with automobiles. I taught motorcycle safety somewhat with the Christian Motorcyclists Association. And then between jobs, I don't know, about 15 years ago, I actually worked as a driving instructor in the Woodlands, Texas. And I gave 60 to 80 students their final exam and gave them their driver's license after, driving weeks.
Sure.
But I really am big on safety. I've done all of this for 70 years and I don't walk with.
Right.
And I think it's because I'm big on safety.
You're a blessed man, Jack.
We would have days where we would drive 8 hours up to southern Oklahoma to go hang gliding. And if the conditions weren't right, I didn't set up and that hurts to drive that far and know you're going to sit there for 2 days playing hacky sack on top of the mountain. That's what you do when the winds are blowing down.
Yep.
And you drive all the way home without even setting up the kite. But that's all part of safety.
So I want to talk about the aerospace industry. So I guess you started working for Aloha Airlines was one of your first, or that you started out with?
Well, actually,
while you guys lived in Hawaii, evidently.
Yeah, we bounced around a lot. Some of it was chasing the sport of hang gliding, and some of it was chasing the sport of scuba diving, something both my wife and I really enjoyed and got very good at. So I actually started in Conroe with a little junket airline called Emerald Airlines. And I went to work for Eastern Airlines in Miami. We were chasing scuba diving then. So we moved to Miami, lived in the Florida Keys for a while. But then after Eastern, I had a contact with Aloha Airlines. And again, I'm just chasing hang gliding and I'm chasing scuba diving. My job was a very small priority to me.
Any kids yet? Or
Yeah, we had two kids. And I just, I was making a living, but hang gliding and scuba diving were pretty much the priorities my wife and I had, along with our kids.
Right, absolutely.
But that's what drove us to where we lived. And man, we've lived in some cool places. We lived in Texas, Florida, Denver, San Francisco, Honolulu, Seattle. All of those are good hang gliding places.
Yes.
And have really good scuba diving in most of those places. So what was the question? I got lost. I was in the clouds somewhere.
I wanted to hear a little bit more about working for Aloha Airlines.
Okay, yeah. From Eastern Airlines.
Yes.
I went to work for Aloha Airlines, and you get out to Aloha, and it's just it's a beautiful place out in Hawaii. And I got really lucky with my job. I had enough experience to take on the job, but the problem with Aloha Airlines was it was owned by a couple of Japanese guys, and most of the vice presidents and directors and maintenance managers, they were, middle-aged white guys from the States, and they spoke really good English, and they expected really good English. Well, most of the better mechanics at Aloha, they were local Hawaiians, and they spoke pidgin. Like they would say, yeah, brah, 802 Alpha Lima, it broke. We make more better in about 4 hours,
Right.
And the vice presidents would say, my God, what is he saying?
Right.
And I was able to come along and say, 802 number 2 engine right now, compressor stalls. We'll get it back on the half hour.
All right.
And they loved it. So based on the fact that I spoke in complete sentences, I became the flight line manager for Aloha Airlines. Aloha, back in its heyday, the average large aircraft takes 1.5 to 2 flights per
Okay.
takeoff and land. At Aloha Airlines, they turned 154 flights a day with 14. Every airplane did 10 to 11 cycles a day because you're just going island to island. It was like half hour, 30, 40-minute flight. And then at night, they would tear the interior out every night and run bread, milk, and mail to the outer islands on 3 of those airplanes. Now, back then, that was the mid-late 80s. So you're talking 737-200s with a cargo door. And they would move cargo at night. In the mornings, would slide the seats back in, use some duct tape to cover the cracks, and put it back in service. And the passengers, it would still smell like fresh bread because they would bake the bread in Honolulu and send it to the outer islands. And the inside of the cabin smelled like bread for a couple of hours. And the passengers would get on and think, oh my gosh, they're serving fresh bread.
Yes.
I'm thinking, no, I'm sorry, the bread's gone. But
no Hawaiian rolls today.
It was a great place to work. But back then, there was a lot of changes going on in aviation. It was becoming privatized and deregulated. And if you recall, to go across the ocean in the old days, you had to have 3 or 4 engines. 747, DC-8, DC-9.
DC-9, right.
Yeah. You couldn't go across the pond, as they call it, with 2 engines because of safety. Well, all the manufacturers' lines, they wanted to prove that it was safe enough. So Aloha Airlines and Air New Zealand were the proving grounds for what's called ETOPS. And ETOPS is still used today, extended twin operations, and it allows you to go more than 700 miles away from land with 2 engines. Aloha Airlines, because we were already in the middle of the Pacific, they were a proving ground for ETOPS. So I became the flight mechanic on a flight every week from Honolulu to Christmas Island, 1,100 miles due south, about 109 miles north of the equator, to a little island called Christmas Island by the government of Kiribati. About 600 or 700 natives. I mean, no teeth, big Samoan guys.
Right.
Didn't even have electricity except maybe 2 or 3 hours a day. And we would go down there every week. And I took the trip 91 times, along with Air New Zealand, proving that it was safe enough, that the reliability of jet engines had come far enough that it was safe enough to go more than 700 miles without a 3rd or a 4th engine.
Okay.
And now everybody does it. 787, 777, 767, 757. Those are all 2-engine jets, and they all go across the pond. That was the key to my aerospace success. When I put that on my resume, I was involved in ETOPS. You would land Honolulu and have to interview with the FAA after every flight. On my resume, that really allowed me to.
Sure.
So I went to work for Continental and then ended up surviving the merger with United.
Okay.
Did 3 years in Chicago, which isn't a bad place for a harmonica player.
Absolutely. Buddy Guy, right?
And Buddy Guys. Yep. Used to play at Legends. And I retired last year from United Airlines after 30-something in aerospace. Big part of my life. It all started with hang gliding, and I wouldn't trade it for nothing like flying.
I love it, man. That's amazing. Congratulations. I love hearing these types of stories. So, talking about hang gliding for a second. I understand one time, I believe you may have been living in Dallas, but I'm not sure, that you were going on a hang gliding trip, and you had about a 2-hour ride, and you found out you had an unannounced hitchhiker in the vehicle with you.
Where did you hear that?
I do my research, man. I have my resources.
Your research sounds like sounds like you've been talking to my wife. Actually, that happened right Houston.
In Houston, okay.
In the Woodlands.
Hitchhiker.
A hitchhiker. That's one of those life-changing, life-molding, forming experiences.
Epiphany
Jay.
or something.
This is like whether or not you're going to wear the halo or have a pitchfork. Just a life-altering thing. I'm going hang gliding.
A fork in the road, right?
A fork in the road, yeah. Exactly. I'm going hang gliding in Oklahoma. And I usually go with friends, but this trip I'm taking by myself, and I'm going to meet my friends up there in southeast Oklahoma. I used to fly Buffalo Mountain and Heavener. Great flying up there.
Nice.
And I'm driving in my van. I've got it all packed up, and I'm about an hour and a half into a 7-hour trip. And I hear this meow. Now, I'm a dog person. It's not that I don't like cats, but I'm a dog person. And I just ignored it. But I went a few more miles, and I hear this meow. And Jay, I'm an hour and a half away from my house already. And it's dark. I'm going to drive all night and get there at, 5 or 6 o'clock in the morning.
Okay.
And do an early morning flight with my buddies that are already there. Well, I kept pushing it. Well, I kept hearing it. So I finally pulled over, and lo and behold, in the back of the van was my next door neighbor's cat. Meow. It had crawled into my van when I was packing in my driveway. And Jay, it's one of those life form moments, those when you think of all the good things you've done in life and all the bad things you've done in life, and you think of the halo and you think of the pitchfork and you think, God, I should just kick this cat out and keep going. Oh, no, I'll take it with me. And I thought, no, it wouldn't survive 3 hours on top of them. And I sat there for the longest time, and I did the right thing. I turned around, and I drove that cat an hour and a half back to mine. I gave it to my neighbor, who simply said, "Oh, thank you, Jack."
Yeah, right.
Are you kidding? I just turned around from a 7-hour trip. Thank you, Jack. But I ended up leaving the next morning. I was too tired to continue on, so I went up and took off missed a whole day of flying because meow.
Right. So the curiosity almost killed the cat.
I almost killed the cat, but I couldn't do it. I don't.
So according to my resource, who will remain anonymous,
I'm going to get her.
When we were talking, he or she, in our conversation, I said, well, knowing Jack the way I know him, he probably had about a good few minutes debate on how he was going to do this, and he was on a seesaw mentally about his decision. But at the end, Jack's a good-hearted guy, and it won him over, and he did a U-turn and came back around.
That's exactly what happened.
And my resource agreed with me wholeheartedly.
That's exactly what happened.
Okay.
I didn't miss that cat once it left us, but
So anyway, once again, I want to remind all of our listeners that today episode is sponsored by the Houston Hangout with Astro Joe Garcia on his Substack. The Houston Hangout explores the intersection of creativity and strategy, blending his music, business, and community insights to inspire meaningful, lasting impact. Joe writes his daily blog of inspiration Monday through Friday, which will be educational and at times entertaining, through short stories that he ties a song to at the end of each of his messages. Have you heard those before?
They are good. In fact, I have taken some of Joe's advice, and I use it daily in my life. He's quite the philosopher.
He really is. And it's always, I hesitate to scroll to the end of the article because it's like that's the big bang finish, is saying, what song did he pick out to tie out to this? And sometimes it's a song I'm like, man, I would have never listened to that song. And sometimes it may be like a 70s funk song or something. And I'm like, I didn't know Joe knew about that. How about that with Joe? But anyway, it's just awesome reads. And the Houston Hangout you can find on Astro Joe's website, which is astrojoegarcia.com. And we want to thank Joe for that. So, Jack, let's get into when you started playing the harmonica.
All right.
So where did that interest come from, and how did that come about? Was it in high school? Was it college? After? Because that's another question of me and a few others in our band have been wondering, when did you start playing harmonica?
Well,
where did the interest come from?
I got serious about harmonica about 10 years ago when I started getting almost good enough to play in bands, and I started actually practicing with bands. And you move really fast then. But it actually started in the mid-'70s. My roommate was a guitar player, and we lived in Denton, Texas, North Texas State University. 5 guys lived in a big frame house out in the country, and we threw some parties.
Yes, indeed.
And we had a jazz band lived right down the street from us. Denton was a really good jazz music school. The band was called Schwantz LaFonts.
Schwantz LaFonts.
If we would set up a stage, they would come and play for free at our parties. Now, we would have to go get their gear and move it down and set it up. And the stage, there was a highway manufacturing sign place about a quarter mile behind our house, where they make the big exit signs for a highway.
Yes.
We could walk back there with a half a dozen guys and pick up one of those signs and bring it over to the backyard and put it on cinder blocks in a full stage. In fact, there's probably a couple of exit signs still in our backyard in Denton, but Schwantz would play for us. And so I was always hanging around with musicians, not very serious about it at all, but they would let me toot on my harmonica in the corner, never, out loud or never with a microphone, just being around the mix of music. And then I got my first guitar, and I was living in a dormitory in Texas, And I'm walking down the hallway, and and I still have the guitar and there's a guitar sitting in a case in the hallway. And I looked at it, and I opened it up, and in the strings of the guitar, and I still have this note, it says, "This is your guitar. Yes, yours. God has given it to you as a gift. Glorify God with it." Now, I wasn't thinking about God at the time, but I thought, wow, this is my guitar. So I took it, and actually, as I took it, there was a girl coming down the hallway, heavy set girl. She saw me reading the note, and she actually started struggling with the guitar for me, and we kind of pulled back and forth. Anyway, I ended up getting the guitar because I saw it first. And I still have the guitar. And I still have the note. But that's how I got my first guitar. Now, I'm not near good enough on guitar to compete with or to play around the people that I play with in the bands. Shameless and Bayou. I mean, these guys are good. Yeah. But what I've done is ever since I got that first guitar, every year for my birthday, I buy a new stringed instrument. And I have for 30. Now, my birthday is February 12th, and I'll talk about that in just a minute. Okay. I buy a new stringed instrument. Nothing fancy, $150, $200. But my collection of stringed instruments is phenomenal. All the ukuleles, violins, dulcimers, mandolins, resonator, sliding steel, all the guitars. And what I do is I kind of teach myself to play it a little bit, enough to be able to write a song, usually a comedy song or a love song. And I play it on that instrument, and then I put it on my YouTube station. And then that process takes about a year. Okay. And then, hey, it's my birthday again in February. I buy another instrument.
We started all over.
Yeah, so I've got quite a collection. I call it my music museum, one of the bedrooms in my house. Because we're empty nesters now. I have a lot of empty bedrooms in my house. And it's
Hold on. So am I. Cheers. I love that.
You love that empty nest.
I love that.
Sleep until noon in the empty nest.
I call it the mood killers. The mood killers.
I love those kids, but man.
I love them, but they are the mood killers. But
I hear you. So I have a room in the house that's just loaded with guitars. My nicest guitar is a 68 hollow body Rickenbacker, which Jamie I know once, but I just can't part
Yes,
with it.
Indeed.
Hollow body twin pickups, exactly what the Beatles played in the 60s. Yeah. So anyway, I've got like 150 songs at least on my YouTube station I've been working on for 10 years.
That you wrote?
60 or 70 I wrote.
Okay.
Mostly comedy, airline comedy songs. Sure. Love songs, Christian songs. I really like comedy because I don't consider myself a serious guitar. Okay. I usually dress up for the videos and
kind of like a Jim Stafford kind of thing.
It's a pretty silly thing, as my daughters. I like it. But that's kind of how I started with the harmonica. Now I'm really glad I stuck with harmonica because good guitar players, bless their hearts, they're a dime a dozen.
Dime a dozen, man.
But a good harmonica player in South Texas. Holy cow, South Texas loves a harmonica. And I'm just glad I stuck with it. Never really had any formal lessons, just picked it up playing with the people I hung out with, starting in Denton in 1976 or so.
That's amazing because, as I said earlier in the introduction of you're definitely the best harmonica player I've ever seen in person. Coming from New Orleans and growing up with really loving blues music in New Orleans and I mean, just watching the old hee-haw shows as a kid and all those guys.
It's easy to play and hard to master is what I say. It's really easy to play, but it's hard to master. And right before I retired with United, Continental and United merged. My office and my job went to Chicago for 3 years. I made 286 trips between Houston and Chicago in less than 3 years. Oh, wow. I know that because my wife counted. But I have to admit, all of a sudden, be living by myself with a harmonica in my pocket in Chicago was a lot of fun. Right. I played all the blues bars. I played at Buddy Guy's Legends on Monday nights. God, I've never played with Buddy Guy, but he heard me play 3 times. One time told me I was pretty good for a white boy from Texas, and I figured that was as good as it gets. And I used to play Kingston Mines on Thursday nights and Roses on Wednesday nights. It was just great. Chicago is the home of the harmonica. Little Walter.
Oh man, I was about to bring up Little Walter.
Yeah, he was my home. Yeah. But I'm really glad
song,
I stuck with the
My Babe, I think, was one of them, and Juke, one of them. Yeah. I'm a Little Walter fan, and Muddy Waters and Howlin' Wolf, because Wolf played harmonica too. Yeah, pretty damn good.
Muddy Waters,
Muddy Waters did.
Little Walter was the best.
Oh, he was
Buddy Guy's harmonica player. Yes. He's the one that took the microphone and the staticky and made it into what it is.
Yeah.
A really hard-hitting rock and roll harmonica.
I'd heard his songs when I was younger, but what really enhanced it with me, the Chess Records?
Chess Records.
Chess Records, which was the story mainly evolved around Muddy Waters, but Little Walter had a big portion in it, but he lived rough, man.
Yeah.
And,
He played hard. He
played hard. He partied hard, and
he had some nice cars and some beautiful girlfriends,
yeah.
but he didn't have $1 in his pocket.
No, he didn't.
Was a typical musician back then. When you go into Legends, they have all their pictures on the wall. It's just like nostalgia.
Is Little Walter from Louisiana? Mississippi?
I don't think so. I thought he was from the Northeast.
Maybe
but I didn't really get involved in him until
Understood.
Yeah, he was my idol for the longest time, Little Walter.
That's another thing I wondered too. So, man, I'm learning a lot here today. A lot of indirect questions I had.
There is a Little Walter Foundation that Legend started via Buddy Guy and Buddy Guy's wife, where they give harmonicas to young kids. Underprivileged kids that want to learn to play something, they'll give them a harmonica. It's called the Little Walter Foundation.
I actually had a harmonica as a kid, and I loved to play around with it when I was a kid. And I'm not my sister can tell you this, but I did have a harmonica as a kid, and I played around with it for a while. I wish I would have kept playing and got a little more serious.
Easy to play and hard to master.
Right. Yeah. So talk to me about, since all this traveling that you did, how many countries did you actually play harmonica in?
Well, a lot. Being with the airlines pretty much my whole life, and my extremely adventurous wife.
Not like you got to haul around a guitar or a set of drums or a bass.
You just got a harmonica in your pocket, and you're the new kid on the block there.
Exactly.
But we had flight benefits our entire life. And we're retired with flight benefits. We can, being retired from United, it's the largest airline in the world, and we can reciprocate with all the others. Anyway, long story short, we can pretty much fly anywhere we want for free, and we do as often as we can. We did a lot more in the younger days. We flew a lot of places, and when you go to sit in with somebody, if you're a guitar player and say, "Hey, I got my guitar, can I sit in with your band?" and they say, "Well, we already have 2 guitar players." And "Hey, I got my drumsticks. Well, no, we already have a good drummer."
Right.
But when you walk up and say, "I'd like to sit in, I play harmonica," and they say, "Well, what keys do you have?" And I say, "I have all the keys." And then I'll say, they'll say, "Well, are you any good?" And I'll say, "Well, kind of, but I know the most important thing needs to know." And they'll say, "What's that?" And I'll say, "When not to play."
Exactly.
And right there, that wins them over.
Exactly.
So to answer your question, my main video that MariAn spent over 10 years shooting, on my YouTube channel, by the way, it's called The Ratler 1, RATL 1.
Okay.
It's been there 10 years or so. I think I have 400 and something on it.
There's a lot. I've been on it. It's very impressive.
The main video you see is about 45 minutes long, which is way too long for a video, but it's playing harmonica in probably at least 25 different bands in at least 11 or 12 countries.
Wow.
And it's because we're always going places, flying for free. And you can look online and see open mic in that area, Paris, Rome, Australia, the Galapagos, anywhere you might be. You can find open mics online, and you just go and make friends with them. Now, I have to admit, putting a $20 bill in the tip jar always helps.
Right?
Always helps. But then, once I play one song with them, I usually get to play 2 or 3. And MariAn's videoed this over the last decade, and I've crunched it down to the harmonica solos in, Tel Aviv, Rome, just all over the place.
Sure. I think that's phenomenal. That's the first thing that caught my attention after I met you was that harmonica.
Couldn't do it with a guitar or a drum or anything else. But the harmonica in your pocket, they'll let you come in.
That's crazy. And it's almost like bass is not as rare as a harmonica, but there's just not that many bass players out there either.
True.
But harmonica players even less, even considerably less. So we were talking about your YouTube channel. I want to talk about that a little bit more. So you've written a lot of songs, Jack, and you perform your songs YouTube channel. And what really caught my attention is some of the children's you did that you have on there. I thought those were really cool. Yeah. I think a couple of them with a ukulele. Sometimes you dress up a little bit when you do it. I just think that's extremely admirable that you do that. And it's almost like a cool Mr. Rogers kind of vibe that I got.
That's a good description of it. Mr. Rogers is kind of how I'd like to take that, being a good guy, clean cut good guy.
Yes.
But, on my channel, over the course of all these instruments, I'm playing on my YouTube channel, I'm playing at least a dozen different instruments. None of them really that good, but I'll write a comedy song. I write a song for each of my grandchildren. And like I say, I buy the instrument in February, learn how to play it in March and April, May, write a song during the course of the summer, practice that song during the fall, record it during the winter, put it on YouTube, and bam. And the year comes around, it's February, and I buy a new instrument, and I do it again. And I've done that like 20-something times. But my first song was called the Banjo Rap. It's on a 5-string.
Okay.
And, I have 4 daughters, and we'll talk about it, I'm sure.
Sure.
My youngest daughter loved rap music, and I listened to a lot of rap music with her growing up in the house. And I'm not a big fan of rap music, and the Banjo Rap was my first song. It's got thousands of hits. A lot of bad comments and a lot of good comments, but it's about how much I don't like rap music. And, of course, I'm dressed up like a Jethro with fake teeth and overalls. And,
Sure.
Messed up here, and I'm playing the banjo.
Hillbilly rap, right?
Hillbilly rap, Banjo Rap.
So talk to me a little bit about, and I didn't know this, you're writing a book.
I am.
But you're writing a book. What really got my attention is you put a Stephen Kingish type of writing.
Well,
which doesn't strike me as parallel to your personality.
Growing up, I've lived with 5 women half of my natural life. And that's pretty scary if you think about it.
Yes, it is.
I'm just kidding.
With all the risky hobbies you had.
Yeah. That was probably one of the safer things. More dangerous things.
More dangerous, right?
But I like Stephen King. I've read everything he's written, including all his work under Richard Bachman. Okay. I like scary stuff, not fantasy stuff, but like Stephen King, I like things that can really happen, like Cujo.
Yeah, like you stretch your imagination.
Gerald's Game, all the stuff that really could happen, but only Stephen King could think of. I love staying awake late at night, reading Stephen. Arthur's like him. And I've been working for a long time on a book called The Elevator. And I got the concept of Willis Tower in Chicago, the tallest target in America. Yes. That's where my office was in Chicago for 3 years. And one day going up towards the top of the Willis Tower, the elevator broke down. And there's about 12 people on it. We were on the elevator for about 5 or 7 minutes, and I watched the people. And at first it was funny. Everybody laughed. And a little bit later, they realized we don't have cell reception. And a little bit of panic stepped in. I thought, this could. So my book, The Elevator, and I've been working on it. I've had to rewrite it twice because of good editors that told me out in the field. It's about 17 people that get stuck in an elevator on Friday night for 72 hours.
Oh, my God.
It's the perfect storm where they're going on a bonding trip for the weekend and nobody expects to hear from them. And it's 17 people, worst of humanity, on an elevator. And, of course, like Stephen King, I spin a backstory on each of the characters and how they got there. And I wrote the whole thing, and I gave it to an editor, and she goes, "This is good, but it's just not going to work." I said, "Why not?" She goes, "Because it's all done." She goes, "You need to tell it from a third." Bing, this light bulb goes off in my head, and I think a 30, of course. So I brought in an 8-year-old girl and her single mom who get on the elevator by mistake. At the last minute, they just happen to get on the elevator with this group of crazy people. And the little 8-year-old girl's name is Susan. And the entire story is told through her perspective. She comes up to the belt line on the elevator, and she's crowded in for 72 hours. And the first line of the book is Susan hated him. And the last line, Susan hated him. So when the editor told me that, J-Bo, I had to scratch. I had like 280 pages, and I had to go back to like page 40-something and start over and input this little girl, Susan. And it flows and reads so much smooth. But in my retirement, I hope to finish that within the next year or so.
I'll be one of the first people to buy it.
I would hope Stephen King would be proud of me. He likes to write things that can really happen. And that's what The Elevator is. It could really happen. And when you get on an elevator and you've read this book, you'll always think, gosh, if this breaks, days will the elevator.
Right. Usually you think in minutes or hours, but then when you get into days, that's...
Man, it's hard to write. Let me tell you, I can crank out a song in a half a day sometimes, but man, writing a book, it's hard. And the backstory, you have so much to keep track of. There's a lot to it.
I call it the Anne Rice detail. How much Anne Rice detail do you want to get into? Because she will get the detail of the detail. That's
what I like to go. I like to go deep into the details. It takes a long time, but it's fun.
So that I tell you, and when the book comes out, we're going to have you back on the podcast.
One of my son-in-laws owns a publishing company, and he assures me no matter how good or bad it is, He will publish it for me, and I'll be giving away copies, I hope, within a year or so.
Very good. Well,
the elevator.
That'll bring you back in the podcast. We'll get you in the pocket. So talk to me a little bit about this YouTube channel. When did you start your YouTube channel? And you seem to really invest some time into it. And
I did.
I love looking at it from time to time.
Well, if you ever go there, you go to playlist, and it's easier to sort through 400, 500 videos by playlist. And you can go down the playlist and pick a country. There's about 12 or 15 different countries represented that we've been through and the adventures we had in that country. I said my wife and I are avid scuba divers. We live in Hawaii. She's actually a much better diver than I am. We have dove all over the world. We've dove all through the Caribbean. We've dove the Great Barrier Reef in Australia. We dove the Galapagos Islands in Ecuador. All through the Hawaiian Islands. I actually quit recording my dives in a log a long time ago. We lived on the water in Hawaii and dove literally 3 times. But the YouTube station has a whole lot of underwater photography in it from all over the world. My sweet wife, she saved money for a year or so. Instead of buying hats and shoes, she bought a really good underwater video camera that we have used for years. And some of the footage, especially the shark footage and the tortoise footage with the turtles, is just phenomenal.
Yes.
Swimming into schools of fish as big as this house, where you disappear, you go into the school. Right. They're so thick. But the YouTube channel, I started basically for the music, with the banjo rap. And I would usually record early Saturday mornings. I would record downstairs in the living room. It's funny when all the girls lived in the house, I would start 7 o'clock Saturday. Sometimes I could get it on the first or second take. Sometimes a song would take me 13 tries to get it right. And finally I'd get it right. And about that time, the girls were waking up and I'd go upstairs so excited. And, girls, you want to listen to my latest song? They said, no, Dad, we've been listening to it since 7 o'clock this morning, all 13 takes, I
love it.
I've really enjoyed the YouTube channel. It's been a log of all of our worldly adventures. I usually get pretty silly on it, like my songs. I try to be comic. I don't take myself too seriously as a musician. So I try to make it comical. There are some, you had mentioned children's songs. I've written some good children's songs. I was I served as a ventriloquist with my church for many years in a children's ministry called Puppets with a Purpose. That's something I did with my daughters, did puppet shows at churches, mostly gospel type of shows. Sure. And I would do a magic act, a ventriloquist thing, and maybe a little song. Literally, I guess I could say, for thousands of children. Some of the shows have 20 kids in it, and some of them have 600 kids. Sure. But I've done it for a long time, and I have a lot of that on my YouTube
That had to be fulfilling.
It was very fulfilling. That's how I serve. Everybody's got a different way to serve. I serve in the children.
Nice.
But yeah, the YouTube channel's been around for a long time. Back before MySpace. Back before TikTok. Back before any of that stuff. It's funny. I've got it for 12 years probably, and I maybe have 150,000 hits, which I'm real proud of. That's good. My granddaughter, a really extremely talented, beautiful lady, she has a TikTok station. She gets 500,000 hits a day. In a day, she gets 500,000 hits.
I need to have her on a podcast.
I can't believe it. Me and my 100,000 hits, I'm so proud of.
I love it.
But it's been fun. It really pulls out the creativity.
So tell me in a nutshell, just tell me a little bit more about your family, your 4 daughters. And
I'm really lucky there, not only having great mom and brother and sister, but I have 4 daughters, been married to the same sweet lady for over 4 years. Wonderful. Each of my daughters are uniquely different. 3 of them are married. One of them's right around the corner from where we're not sure. Okay. But she's been with a really nice guy. And yeah, there's a lot to be said for growing up with 5 women. First place, it taught me respect. Yes. It really taught me respect for women. After going to college in Denton, I needed that. It really taught me just how valuable they are and how talented they are. Some of the best captains of airlines I know are women. I've flown a lot with women captains through the Pacific. Very competent. Definitely the better looking of the 2 sexes. Without a doubt. I say that God made man stronger than women so that he could put them on a pedestal and lift them up to his glory. Right. That's the only reason we're stronger. Understood. Other than that, they pretty much beat us. So you had to lift 4
plus my resource. MariAn up on a pedestal, right? I'm not going to say my resource. Sorry
Right,
about that.
right. Oh, I figured you talked to her.
I don't know what you're talking about.
But yeah, no, it's been great growing up.
So 5 grandchildren? No, it's the mix.
5
boys and
grandchildren,
girls, or-
all of them are local. I'm really lucky. All my daughters are local. All my grandchildren are local.
Any boys and the grandchildren?
Yeah, I got 2 boys.
All right,
and,
all right.
3 girls and grandchildren. I have a song on my YouTube station about each of them. Some of them are pretty heartfelt and some of them are pretty darn funny.
I love it. Good.
You can find it on the playlist, Songs for Grandchildren. It'll list the 5 or 6 of them. But sitting at a dinner table, MariAn served dinner at 6 o'clock on the dot, and sitting at a dinner table listening to 5, it really taught me a lot about respect and how you should treat them.
Yes.
Something that I think a lot of men are missing out. They have taught me a lot. They've been by far the fullest and most important part of my life. And the fact that they're all local and they still talk to me,
yes,
I'm thrilled.
Yeah, I had some wonderful women in my life too, especially my mother, and very strong women like my sister Dawn, who I think you met, and of course my wife Becky. And I always say what prepared me to be with Becky is growing up with Dawn, because strong women who I pay attention to. So anyway, talk to me a little bit about playing music in the North Houston area. And I know we met about 3 years ago, probably, and we've pretty much been friends ever since. We crossed paths here and there in the beginning, but it's been just a treasure meeting you and developing the friendship that we have and that our wives have. And so, and the countless times you sat in with our band, which is an open invitation, by the way, which I always stress. But what do you like the most about playing music in this northern area? Well, at this point in time where you are in your life?
I said South Texas loves a harmonica, and
yes,
they do. And South Texas really loves music. It's just in it's in roots, blues, all kinds of blues, country, rock. And do you know that Little Conroe, Texas, was the number 2 music capital of the state of Texas for 2 years in a row, behind Austin?
I did not know that.
Conroe's got a fantastic music scene, lots of open mics, lots of talent.
Yes.
And I used to go up to the Do-Si-Do, really popular little music, and I would play at their open mics. And I bumped into this guy named Ronnie that said, "Hey, I'm trying to form a band. Why don't you come by?" And I didn't really think I was good enough, but I went by and made friends with him and went to a few practices. And that started the era of Shameless. Shameless was a really good rock band, 4-person. And shameless is a noun, not an adjective.
Understood.
Most of the time. Sometimes it's an adjective, but we try to make it a noun.
I can relate.
Yeah. It was a lot of fun.
I'm sure we all did.
We were in Shameless for almost a decade. 4 months into the band, we won a radio station contest in Houston. Scott Sparks, 97.3, is 103, so whatever. A radio station in Houston. We won a radio station contest, and we got to open for Foreigner at the Arena Center.
Wow.
I mean, packed out Arena Center. I mean, we'd been together 4 months. In the words of Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young, we were scared shitless. But we played 3 songs, and they liked us, and that was our big claim to fame. And I was with Shameless for a decade. We made 1 album, or 1 CD called Main Strong. We were working on another one called Hard Storm when the pandemic came in.
Okay.
And that kind of went south because, we're all confined.
Sure.
But Shameless was a lot of fun. Played a whole lot of shows. It's just like hang gliding. It consumed me for the decade I was part of.
Right.
And I guess then there was another band before that I should mention, PPG, the Private Parts Group. Mondo, Mingo, and Max were the 3 guys.
Mingo, Max.
Mondo, Mingo, and Max, the
and
PPG. Jack. Straight up blues.
Man.
Buddy Guy, B.B. King, straight up blues. Good harmonica music.
Albert King, all that kind of stuff.
I cut my teeth on that, and then it's Shameless. And then we were with a startup band called the Prodigal Dog, which I thought was a really catchy name for it. But we all lived too far away from each other to make that work. And then, I met you with different bands. I played with the Road Dogs.
Yeah.
Texas Twisters, and now recently with Bayou Junction, who I think is just, with their mix of genres and with Gigi, a female vocalist in Bayou Junction.
Amazing.
It's just, it's amazing what a female vocalist in the middle can do for a band.
Right.
She's just phenomenal.
Yes. Between that, we have, Astro Joe on accordion. Okay, and we have Steve Owens as our drummer, who, man, he's one of the best drummers I've ever been around. The guy's amazing, solid, lot of experience, and just nurturing. And then we have our amazing singer, Miss Jerry Griffin, OGG. She is something else. I mean, she's the star of the show with us. People love her, and I know she's a huge fan of yours, Jack, as well. So I know you guys have a mutual admiration society going there, because she loves when you sit in with us. But we really appreciate you, because when you sit in with us, you add an extra flavor to our band. Well, I'm going to talk a little New Orleans here. You add a little spice to it, when we're playing. And I can't tell you how many times you sat in with us, and when you really start getting on that thing burning, I mean, people, their heads turn and look.
Let me tell you, it's fun. Like I say, South Texas loves the harmonica. I like the fact that almost everyone from Bayou Junction is from New Orleans or associated with Louisiana somehow. And I like that, being born in New Orleans. But it's just the music, too, and the people. The mix of people is just really great. And sitting in is a good descriptive term. I played in bands for like a decade, maybe 12 years, and there's a real commitment.
Yes.
I mean, you have to commit to a schedule. And sitting in allows me in my retirement, we're going to be gone all next month to Tennessee in the RV. I couldn't do that if I was a full-time member. Right. So I like sitting in with bands, and Bayou Junction's my favorite.
Well, we really appreciate it, because it's just amazing what you do with us. And that's the biggest part about having a band, is just the availability of the members themselves. So as we're getting close to wrapping up here, Jack, is there anything else you want to talk about here, or is there something I missed that we didn't cover? And you have the floor, my friend.
Yeah, and I thank you, Jay, for including me on your podcast. This is fun. Podcasts are new. They didn't have these when I was young.
Actually, they did.
What, they did?
Lucille Ball actually had one back in the day. It wasn't called a podcast, of course, but it was a radio talk show where she introduced her guest, and I caught it on Sirius XM last year, and man, I loved it.
I didn't know that.
She was a radio Johnny Carson for about, I want to say about maybe 15 or 20 shows, and she was phenomenal.
I'll be darned.
But I grew up watching Johnny Carson. That was a treat for me. But anyway, is there something that that you want to have the floor with here?
Well, I've told a lot of stories: hang gliding, scuba diving, motorcycle riding, airplane flying. I have had just a phenomenally full life and blessed, and I don't take it for granted. But there is something that I started a long time ago.
Okay.
That has led me to getting off my couch. And it's called All My Marbles.
All My Marbles.
Well, I guess it was 25 years ago, maybe 30 years ago, I found myself sitting on my couch, overweight, in my SpongeBob boxer shorts, with a TV remote control in one hand and a bag of Cheetos in the other, covered in Cheeto dust, my kids running around the living. It was a good life, but I realized I wasn't doing anything with myself, that I just wasn't taking advantage of talents I might have and places I want to go and things I want to do. So I said, enough is enough. And I basically threw a TV in a swimming pool and said, I'm done with monitors. I want to start getting out and doing something. Long story short, I went out and I bought a big jar of marbles. There was a couple thousand of them. And it represented how many weekends I had left in life if I lived to be 72 years old. And at the time, it was a pretty big investment. I probably had to spend $130 on marbles. It was a big jar of marbles.
Okay.
And what I did, and 72 was the average lifespan of a first world male at the time, so I used that.
Okay.
I counted out marbles, and I said, I have this many weekends left in life. And Jay, every Friday for 30 years, and I still do it today. My bag of marbles is pretty small, though. I put a marble in my pocket, and it reminds me not to sit on my couch. It reminds me to get out and suck up life, both ends.
Right.
Light that candle at both ends every time you get a chance to. What I do is, wherever I'm at in life, I leave that marble somewhere during the course of the weekend. And let me tell you, they are all over the world. They're in the Da Vinci Fountain. They're in the Eiffel Tower. They're in the Great Barrier Reef. They're throughout the Galapagos Islands. They're in the Roman Colosseum. They're in the mountains of Switzerland. They're in the United Nations meeting room. It gets me off my butt on weekends is what and it's called All My Marbles. And If I'm home, sometimes I'll just throw them away. If I'm not doing anything, I'll throw them away. Usually I'll give them to a friend or somebody that I really respect and like.
Okay.
I'll give them my Friday marble and tell them just how much I appreciate them.
Well, thank you very much.
I just gave Jay my Friday marble.
He sure did. It's pretty cool, too.
I've got a small bag of marbles left because I'm pushing 70, and the program was till I was 72. Now, if I make it to 72, Jay, I'll buy another bag of marbles, a small bag, but I'll keep going. But I've done that for more than 30 years, and I got to tell you, it has kept me off of my couch. It's forever sending me on a new adventure, wondering where I'm going to leave my marble this coming weekend.
Man, that's amazing, Jack. I need to.
30 years, 30 plus years.
That is amazing.
You should try it.
To just to have the motivation to get that done and accomplished is really cool, and to have a marble like this from you is just a treat. So I really appreciate that. And I tell you what, I could probably use a marble or two because my wife is claiming I'm always losing my marbles.
Yeah,
I think so.
That's what my girls
that definitely helps me out as well.
I'm losing my marbles one weekend at a time.
But what an inspirational little story that is, and it's amazing that you had the wherewithal to say, hey, I need to do something different here. And when you have challenges like that you're dealing with throughout life, first thing is, I guess, like you hear the motto with AA, who my maternal grandfather went through, you got to realize you have a problem first. And then when you have a problem, you can address the problem, get a strategy going, and then work your plan. And it's obviously what you did, and you're leaving a piece of Jack all over this world.
It's led to a lot of exciting weekends. Let me tell you, trips I wouldn't have taken if it wouldn't have been for that Friday marble.
And how many times have you told a story about the marbles?
A bunch. They're all over my YouTube station. Leaving my marble all over the world is a feature on the YouTube station, and it's a life-changing concept, I assure you.
Excellent. Well, Jack, I want to thank you so much for being a guest on my show.
This has been fun. This has really been fun.
I love it. You've been a great guest in the pocket today, and I want to go back real quick to when you sit in with our band, because like I've always told you, you have an open invitation with our group, and we just love having you perform with us. And people that live in the greater Houston area, especially in the North Houston region, if you want to see Jack with us, which he is from time to time quite often, just check out the Bayou Junction Facebook or Instagram pages of our schedule, and you'll be able to see. And we love having him with us. He just adds so much spice to our group, and he is our secret weapon, so don't tell anybody about that.
I like that. The secret weapon. Look out. Yeah, this has been a lot of fun, Jay. I appreciate you picking me for this cast. This has been enlightening, and I haven't thought about some of these stories I told for a long time.
Well, that's the part of it, is we want to get the story out, and we want to hear about the achievements, but we want to hear about the challenges and how you overcame them. Like your last story, Jack.
And most of it's true.
Right.
Most of it's true. It's those darn marbles.
Right. So anyway, with Jack, again, I want to thank you so much, brother. And with that, we'll see you on the flip side for another episode of In the Pocket with J-Bo.
Yeah,
all right.